Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And today we're looking at Beast, which we had to see in 4DX, which we've seen a couple of films in before. You are not a fan of.
I hate it.
And the reason we had to see it in that is it's the only thing that Cineworld was offering, and we couldn't understand why. I asked a member of staff there, she didn't know why.
Yeah.
But we had to see it in 4DX, which you were willing to, then became the only way to see it, conveniently. It's man versus beast. So Idris Elba is American in this film. His two daughters have a South African mum, and they go to the place where she comes from. She's no longer in the picture, and that forms part of the drama and the kind of disconnect between him and his daughters. They meet an old friend, played by Sharlto Copley, who is South African. You know him from District 9. He runs or looks after, he works on a game reserve. And so they go on a little private safari. Lovely. And of course, what happens is things start to go wrong. There is a very vicious lion around the place, whose entire pride has been killed by poachers, and this lion is out for revenge on humans, no matter who they are or what they look like, or because you can't tell the difference between a friendly human and a poacher. And so we endure a night of terror.
So I hated everything about it. So I am going to enumerate all my different dislikes because I know you were entertained by it. So it'll be a nicer note to end on. I absolutely despise the 4K, and I
4DX.
The 4DX, and I want to just a word to Cineworld. Really, you have to offer another option, because for me it made me ill. All this, the rumbling of the seat, the wind under your on your ears, the shocks to your system, and actually I despise it conceptually, because I think it's almost like you don't believe in the film. Yeah, kind of, the film is meant to thrill and, it's meant to kind of incite all those, visceral and emotive responses in you. And, these things, they either get in the way of that, or they really just shock your system. I mean, and it was really terrible. I had a coffee, that every time the seat began to shake, I had to lift the coffee out of the cup place, because it was spilling all over the place. I mean,
they do, in fairness, say if you're seeing 4DX, you shouldn't be taking coffees in there.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. They are fairly, because I think that's more about if you it can spill, you could burn yourself. We're putting that warning on so that you're not having to go at us for when you get hurt.
Well, anyway, even if I hadn't brought my cup in, I would hate it really. So first that. Then, the kind of the concept itself for me is so badly worked through. Because I think at one point you were saying, is this like a mutant lion? Does it have some knowledge, understanding, or power? No, but actually, I thought there was something. Yeah,
it's because of the point. This is a minor spoiler, but we're talking about the film. It's the point where they tranquilize it, and then the tranquilizer does nothing. So you're like superhuman lion or super lion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or when the Copley character says, "I'm the bait." Yeah, it's almost like. This lion has a kind of understanding, or, that is beyond other lions, right? So I think all of that is kind of badly worked through, because it turns out he's just a lion, right? Who's kind of, getting revenge on those who killed his pride, right? So I hated that.
Well, to be fair, revenge is also quite an advanced concept for an animal, but the point is the film doesn't end up answering any of the questions. It's just, this is some special lion.
That's right.
Yeah.
I hated the conceptualization of the relationship between Idris Elba and his daughters, right? I thought they were the most irritating kids in movies this year. It's almost like the father says, don't leave the car. What happens? The girl leaves the car. What happens when the girl leaves the car? The lion comes. It's like every predictable cliche, right? I mean, I thought that was just terrible. I hated the cinematography. This is one of those instances where you think people are not paying enough attention to how black-skinned photographs. Like, there were some of those scenes with the Idris Elba character in the dark, where his whole face just kind of faded into the darkness. And that shouldn't be like that. And that is a real, just, basic problem with either the cinematography itself or the way that it's been developed for us. Yeah, and that would never happen, to a white film star. So I had, a real problem with that. I had a real problem with Idris Elba. I mean, I think, he's someone that when he's good, he doesn't add much to the picture.
Yeah, so we're talking about it just before the film started, and I said he's like a carpet. Where if a carpet's fitted badly, you go, "Oh, that doesn't fit." But if it is fitted well, you go, like no one goes, "What a lovely carpet you've got."
Yeah.
It's just a carpet.
So I know that he's a fetish actor for some, that people find him incredibly handsome or whatever, but I just think he brings nothing to the movie. I mean, kind of, you could imagine like what Denzel would have brought to this, or even who was the villain in Black Panther, who was Creed?
Oh, Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan, it would be a whole completely different movie altogether. I mean, Idris Elba just doesn't pay off as a film star. I like him very much on TV, but kind of, you really see all the blankness around him on the big screen. Anyway, I think that's enough. I really kind of didn't like it. So what did you find so entertaining about it?
My turn.
Yes.
I'll agree with a fair amount of what you're saying. I'll disagree with bits and pieces. There's elements of the cinematography I liked. The cinematography involved a lot of long take and a kind of roaming camera. Not always, and there was more conventional, just cutting every now and again. But a lot of scenes, particularly early on, are doing this long take thing where admittedly, no particular individual image that it kind of settles on during the take is that spectacular or
none
interesting.
of them, I noticed that.
But it is, so for instance, they go and see this pride of lions that is on the reserve that Sharlto Copley knows. He's raised them when they were cubs. This is what we're learning during the take. So they arrive in the vehicle, we meet one of the other game wardens there, chat to him for a little bit. The girl is kind of looking at how the gun's put together. We move on to something else, and then we move on to Sharlto Copley's character walking over to these lions, and then we're going to get this moment where the lion is going to come down from the rock, because there's like 8 or 9 lions on this thing. The one of them is going to come down from the rock, and it's going to look like he's going to attack him, but of course he's going to hug him, and then there's the whole thing, and then another lion comes in, there's more hugging and playing, and then we see a lion that doesn't want him to come near him, and it's starting to hiss and all that. And we see that it's injured, but Sharlto Copley realises I can't go near it. So this all happens in this one take. And what I liked about it was that I thought it controlled the evolving tone of the scene nicely. It starts off all friendly and nice, and then we see this line that doesn't want to come near, and the tone changes. And I think it works nicely. And I think generally speaking, when these long takes are used, some in excess of a minute or two probably, that does tend to work well. It does tend to... you do basically go, this didn't need to be done in cuts, right? This works as a single take. So that's something I like.
Okay, well, I can see that, yes.
I think you're right about, not seeing characters in the dark when they are dark-skinned, and that's an issue that the film has from time to time. The use of CGI, I thought, was fairly good. I mean, essentially, we're fighting this CGI lion all night long, and particularly using CGI in night scenes and dark scenes helps CGI, because you essentially notice mistakes less, right? So when you get into broad daylight, it tends to look worse. Although when you do get into broad daylight and you see the line, I still think it looks very good. The thing, I was entertained the whole way through, but that doesn't make it a good film. So the relationship between the dad and his daughters, I mean, the thing I would disagree with you about there is that it's a kind of point you would make, where if I said, these girls keep getting out the car, you'd go, well, yeah, but if they don't, there's no film. Like, if everyone acts like perfectly safely, there's just no film.
No, but these were like constantly irritating. Like, I mean, if that happened once, fair enough, right? But I mean, they were very badly written, these characters. Like, so they were angry at the father because of what they perceived to be his treatment of the mother as she died, right? And they're not giving him any slack, fair enough, And of course, the whole film is about healing that. But really, do you have to kind of, be bitten by a lion in order to solve an emotional problem?
Right, well, yes. So
right,
the conflict between the dad and the daughters is, he wasn't there for the last year of the mother's life when she had cancer. She knew she was dying. They knew she was dying. And he says, we'd separated already. And so there's clearly, there seems to be kind of reasonable points on both sides, sort of thing. But this is a rift between the two, particularly between the dad and his older daughter, that needs to be healed. And you go, that's fine, but it is setting that kind of stuff up extremely mechanically. You see all the pieces being put into place early on for how they're going to kind of pay off later on. And in fact, they almost didn't pay off in the ways that were kind of as predictable as I thought they'd be. Like, I thought it would be much more kind of down the line as like the dad learns to look after his daughters better, or learns to... And actually, it doesn't really address any of that. All that happens is through the night, he gets away with keeping his daughters safe.
Well, yes, but he sacrifices his life for...
Yeah, well, exactly. He intends to. But the thing about, any kind of drama between him and his daughter about the mum is completely unresolved.
They go at the end. They go to the tree that the mom had photographed.
Right. Yeah. So it's not doing that basically.
I mean,
I
think it's a disaster. I thought it was one of the worst films I've seen all year.
It's extremely short. It's how long? Oh, there's some angry people outside. It's extremely short, 93 minutes, which is it's the right length for this kind of film because it is in and out, and it's just a night of terror with a lion, and the next morning,
yeah,
and are we going to survive it? And the pace I think is good. I mean, essentially, you have to ask yourself, what am I asking to get out of this film, right? This isn't going to be the film that kind of answers all my questions about the depths of humanity. It's going to be, can this keep me going for an hour and a half of basically the luckiest man in the world fighting the smartest, most vicious lion in the world, and it worked for me.
Okay,
unironically, I was enjoying it.
What Chris Rock says, you low expectation motherfucker.
I did have low expectation. That is a huge part of it. I went into this, I didn't know anything about it, or very little. The only thing I knew was that Idris Elba's real life daughter had auditioned for the part of one of the daughters in this, and didn't get it because the chemistry wasn't right, and then didn't speak to him for 3 weeks. I'd heard that, so I thought, right, there's a dad-daughter relationship going on here. Didn't know anything else. I had low expectations because of Idris Elba largely. I came out having gone, you know what? It kept me completely diverted.
We've seen so many films with him, and and they're all so bad, and he's so it's not that he's bad, but he's just so
bland.
He lacks it. Whatever it is that movie stars have that keep you wanting to look and that express something, he lacks it. Really, at least on a big screen. So he's just like a dead weight around the whole center of the film. But I also thought that the film it didn't look very good. Kind of, you said you like the long shots and whatever, but actually, kind of, there wasn't anything kind of worth looking at, in the shot itself.
I said that too.
I know. Okay. I'm just underlining.
Oh, right, okay.
So, and then I also thought that the way it scared you, or the way that it created suspense and so on, was very unimaginative.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So, and actually, that is what you require of a film like this. That at least it have, some scares, or some surprises, or, kind of that bit with the snake, where he threw the snake and then, the lion jumped. That got a laugh, right? I mean, and I thought that was maybe the only bit of imagination there was the lion's response to that. Yeah, I think there should have been a lot more of that kind of thing.
I would have liked it to have been more imaginative, but that doesn't mean that using unimaginative ways of generating tensions and kind of developing those scenes isn't effective. And I thought it was reasonably effective, but predictable. So it hangs a lampshade on kind of Jurassic Park right at the start of the film. The daughter's wearing a Jurassic Park shirt, and so it's completely sort of pointing out 5 minutes into the film, this is going to be about, we're on safari with dinosaurs, right, in Jurassic Park, and here we're on safari with a lion that's going to be giving us grief and so on. And then as the film kind of develops, you get points where it feels like it's excusing its own references to Jurassic Park by doing that. So, when the car's on the cliff and it's hanging off, and that's quite Jurassic Park. And when the dad is in the lake and he's hiding under the sort of broken tree branch, and the lion's on top of him, which is the raptor scene from the kitchen in Jurassic Park, right? So it's kind of not only is it unimaginative, but it is giving itself an excuse to be unimaginative by going, hey, we've put Jurassic Park in this, we know the reference that we're making.
Let me tell you, I mean, I don't think much of Jurassic Park, but actually, comparing this to Jurassic Park comes across as a brilliant work of astonishing genius, right? Yeah, and I think that goes more to point to the faults of this film's than
quite
success.
It makes you think about how great that scene in the kitchen was. It makes you think about how great all those moments were, how great it was when the car's hanging off the cliff, which, that's not really a scene here, it's just kind of where the car ends up, but you don't make much of it. Whereas in Jurassic Park, it was a whole thing about the car falling down the cliff.
Well, I mean, imagine what someone like Spielberg would have done when they are sheltering in that hut and the lion comes in. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
So all of
in
those...
in the school, yeah.
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 Not in the school, in the Poacher's Lodge at the end. It's not a school. It's a Poacher's Lodge. Yeah,
They went to the place with the school. They knew that's where that was, and then when he leaves the girls alone.
Yeah, I thought that was a Poacher's Lodge. It has skeletons of lions all over.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
They made mention of it being where the school was because that's where the original Pride was who saved the day. But it didn't look like a school, admittedly.
No, it did.
Okay. Well, yeah, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but you're right. So he leaves the girls alone there. The one girl is injured and trying to recover, and of course they leave all the doors open like a load of fucking dipshits, and the lion comes in. I thought it was interesting, actually, or it could have been interesting, the idea of these black Americans being the ones who are out of place in Africa. Right?
That would have been interesting. Also, to have given the girls more agency and imagination in defending themselves and outwitting the lion, they had a potential there to do all kinds of interesting things that this film is just too unimaginative to conceive of.
Yeah, the one bit of agency and imagination the girls get at all, I think, is when the younger daughter stabs the lion with the dart because they're trying to shoot it and they can't get the gun, and the dad's under the car and she's like, I'm going to just go for this. And, which is a lovely moment. I liked it. And you go, yes, the girl she's fighting.
Yeah, she's stopped whining.
But so the fact that I liked it does not make it a good film. I had a good time, and I think it is reasonably entertaining. I can't disagree with any criticism of it. It's not a good film. It's unimaginative. It's not that nice to look at. The performances aren't amazing. I don't think they're terrible. They're not amazing. And Idris Elba, as you say, is not a star, and we keep reiterating this every time we see him. Yeah. He's not. He just doesn't look right on. No, he looks right on the cinema screen. He's handsome and he looks right, but he doesn't have the presence that he needs.
No.
In fact, the only thing I think we liked him in was The Suicide Squad, the remake. But that again was not a very good film.
No.
Yeah, he was kind of all right in it, but
yeah. Anyway, so I hated it. And I think it's one of the worst films I've seen this year.
I would actually say, can I say one thing about the 4DX, because I haven't?
Yeah.
Is I didn't mind it, right? So there are elements of, generally speaking, I'm more tolerant of it anyway than you are.
Yes.
But 4DX is built out of many different elements that are meant to kind of bring the film into the cinema. The main one is that the seats move, tilt, go back and forward. There's also strobe lighting is available, which you hear once or twice when guns go off. They to imitate muzzle flash. The seat itself can kind of rumble. It can stab you in the back, which again is used once or twice. It rumbles when the car, for instance, is driving across the plains, and you get stabbed in the back when the lion attacks you by surprise. You get kind of blasts of air. So there are bits of it I like and bits of it I don't. I don't like blasts of air. I don't like anything that makes a smell, because the smell is supposed to imitate grass or something, and it's all just fucking nasty. I do like how the seats move, and I do like the rumbling. See, the thing is, before the film began, what we saw were a couple of trailers which used the 4DX. And because the trailer is 2.5, 3 minutes long, it just fucking throws everything at you because it's trying to excite the shit out of you. And it is horrible. In the film, it's not all the way through. It intensifies at points, when the line is attacking and there's fighting, and it is sometimes completely off. And sometimes when the car is driving, for instance, it's slow and gentle, and the seats are kind of gently moving. The wind is on, which I don't like the noise it makes because the fans are loud, but I didn't mind the wind. I mean, well, also it's because it's better than the fucking air conditioning in the cinemas. In other words, it's not just this onslaught, but I can also see why you just don't like it, right?
Yeah, well, at the beginning I felt it was an onslaught, and I thought if I had eaten just before this film, I would have chucked it all up at that moment, because my stomach was going in one way, my head was going in another. I just hated that. I hate being jolted like that.
Yeah, well, if it had not been available in 4D, if it had been available in 2D rather regular, we obviously would have seen it like that, and we wouldn't have also then had to pay a surcharge of £9.40-ish.
Yeah.
On top of the unlimited card, which isn't, I suppose you think if the film is only available in 4DX, if that's the only way you're offering it, don't charge us.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not going to happen, is it?
No. Anyway, I think we're both agreed that it's not, the top choice of the season. So thank you very much for listening. We're eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Audible, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Yeah.
Bye bye.